Hey guys, Will, it's Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome. Thank you for finding us. I hope you're doing well. If you feel like subscribing, that would be a huge help. Thank you so much. Jump in the comments and let me know what you've been watching recently, and share your Letterboxd links, because I like to follow people on Letterboxd, and you should come follow me because everything I'm watching is I log and review on there. So stuff I don't have time to review for the channel or is not kind of relevant to the channel, but that I'm watching and really liking is all up on there. So you can follow that, and then I can follow you, and we can all see what everyone's watching. We got a quick Blu-ray video today. So this is going to be a combination of pickups and recommendations. Some of this is stuff I've already shown off in other pickups videos, but I have since watched and I just wanted to talk about really briefly. Some of it is new stuff that has recently come in. So, Running on Karma. This is Johnny To and Wai Ka-fai co-directed film. It stars Andy Lau, as you can see right there. I think this was 2003, and I watched this movie a couple weeks ago. I actually recorded a review of it. I finally made clips for the review. I don't know when we're going to be able to get the review up because it's the editing log is kind of long right now. But I wanted to do like a quick video about this in case it takes me a couple weeks to get the review up. I really liked this movie. It is a very strange film. It's kind of like a ridiculous comedy. It's kind of like a gruesome murder mystery. And it's kind of like a romantic, sad dramedy that is very deeply rooted in like Buddhist themes. It's like multiple movies happening simultaneously, but the way that they're kind of blended, the way that the overlaps happen, I think work really well. There's also tons and tons of symbolism in this movie. This is a heavily symbolic film that is looking at, I think, like the history of Hong Kong and the influence of Chinese culture upon Hong Kong. I think it's looking at cinema and things like Shaw Brothers movies and how they kind of form this foundation for these more modern films that are less fantastical, and in the way that that is kind of a parallel to kind of, you know, like older, more fantastical, mystical beliefs and how they underlie this modern system of like logic and rational thinking and stuff like that. It's a really thematically interesting film. This is a fantastic addition. It has two really good bonus like documentaries on here, and then it also has a commentary with FJ and FJ DeSanto and Frank Zhang, and then a solo Frank Zhang commentary too. So you will learn tons about the film, but I really like this film. It's not a Johnny To like election style, straight up like heavily stylized, like really cool slow burn crime film. It's kind of all over the place, but I really liked it. So next up is a film I've already reviewed for Patreon that will probably end up being a Patreon exclusive. It's Limbo. This was actually given to me. This release was sent to me by one of our patrons. This is the 4K and Blu-ray dual format release. It includes an interview with the filmmaker in the book here, which is really interesting. It talks about like the process of putting the film together and stuff like that. This is a really dark, gruesome, kind of disturbing film that's kind of, it reminds me a bit of Seven, not in that the two films are really similar in a lot of ways, but in that it's a film that's a detective story, but that really walks the line between like thriller / neo-noir and horror. It's a very dark film that has some really intense sequences. It's black and white. It's got really phenomenal black and white cinematography. The music is fantastic. The acting is incredible. The characters in this movie are great. The screenplay, like everything about this movie is phenomenal. This is one of my favorite first watches of the year. I think I have it in my Letterboxd top 4 right now. But I highly recommend this film if you like. I mean, it's pretty gruesome. And people actually told me before I watched it that there might be stuff that's like a little bit too strong for me in here, because there are certain types of stuff I just really can't. I'm like, my stomach is too weak for. But I watched the whole movie. I didn't skip anything. Like it's intense and it's grisly and it's gnarly and it's nasty, but it's almost like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Fincher film. Like it's really uncomfortable and it has some really strong, disturbing stuff in it, but it's handled so well and the film is so damn good that you can't turn away from it in a way. Really, really phenomenal movie, and I highly recommend. This is like I said, the 4K and Blu-ray dual format release. So now we have some pickups. This is the Tale of Owa's Ghost. This is a Japanese film directed by Tai Kato. This is from 1961. Tomisaburo Wakayama is in this film. So this is based on the same ghost story as the Yotsuya ghost story, which I loved last year. That was in the Radiance, this is Radiance Films release. That was in the Radiance Films Dai Gothic set, which was one of my favorite releases from last year. 3 phenomenal films in it. I loved the Ghost of Yotsuya, and this is, I think, based on the same tale. And Tai Kato is a director who many people have recommended to me, and I own 3 of his movies now and haven't watched any of them. So I'm really excited to watch. I might watch this one tonight. I haven't totally decided yet what I'm watching tonight, but this is kind of like a gothic black and white Japanese ghost story from what I understand. Okay, so next up we have Palindromes. This is a Todd Solondz. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce his name. He directed Happiness and Welcome to the Dollhouse and various other very controversial films. This is an indie movie from, I think, 2004. So this came out when I was in college. I remember this coming out. I had never seen it before. This is the Radiance Films 4K Blu-ray dual format release. This is a very strange film. It's got some highly disturbing material in it. I found this movie fascinating. I wrote a very long Letterboxd review of it that you can go and check out. There's so many like interwoven layers of symbolism. So I guess I should like trigger warning that this is a film about a 13-year-old girl who gets pregnant and then she has an abortion and then there's like something medically goes wrong during the abortion. She runs away from home. It's got some really kind of disturbing like sexual material in it with like underage kids. I mean, basically children. She's 13 years old, right? And it's adolescence, I guess. But it's this kind of it's a very bizarre film because there's I think 6 or 8 different actors who play the lead character. And so she's played by like adults, she's played by very young children, she's played by adolescents. There's 2 black women who play her. The rest of them are white. And there's clear influence from, like Alice in Wonderland, for instance, on this movie. Like there is a fantastical element to it, but it's also like it's shot and put together in a way that's very much like rooted in like an aesthetic of indie realism. So there's like this inherent kind of tension at the core of it. But I found it to be a really sad and moving and empathetic and really thought-provoking film about young womanhood and about women confronting this idea that like they're no longer these precious little girls anymore, but they're being really heavily sexualized, and how that is really difficult while you're going through so much internally with the emotions that are happening during puberty and stuff like that. And it's kind of like a very sad coming of age story about the loss of innocence in childhood and the way that like adulthood, sexuality and sex and self-conscious images and like all of these things are forced upon women at a very young age when they're still really in a lot of ways children. And so I thought it was a really fascinating and moving film. It's definitely not for everyone. Like I said, it is. There's some there's nothing graphic in this movie. Like you don't look at it and you're like, oh, it's not like exploitative, but it's disturbing. But I found it to be a really fascinating film. I'm very glad that I watched it. And had Radiance Films not put out that release, that also I should say there's a pretty substantial interview with the writer director on there that's really interesting, that I highly recommend watching after you watch the movie, because you get kind of some insight into his mentality when he made the film. So next up, I don't even know if I need to talk about this movie. I have shown this off in a previous pickups video. I rewatched it last night. This is, I think, my 3rd time seeing it, but I hadn't seen it since I was in college, so it's been about 20 years since I last watched this. This is Bicycle Thieves, Vittorio De Sica. This was released in 1948. Italian neo-realist masterpiece, and that I know that word is used too much these days, and I know that I use that word too much, but this is unequivocally a masterpiece, and I would argue, one of the best, one of the most important, one of the most influential films ever made. What do you even say about it? Like there's no point, in a way, there's no point in even talking about this movie because so much has been said about it. It's on like every list ever made of the best movies ever made, and it deserves to be on there. It's not one of these movies that maybe had like a really strong impact when it first came out and like seared itself into people's brains, and when you go back and you watch it, you're like, that's maybe not that good. Like this is one of those movies where you go back and watch it. I mean, this movie's 80 years old now, and it's shockingly incredible. Like it's so profound, it's so beautiful, it's so empathetic and emotional and sad, and the cinematography is incredible, the acting is incredible, the writing is incredible, the music is incredible. It's like reaching for the sublime, and I think it grabs it, and it's just like this really transcendently phenomenal film, and I can't say enough good things about it. And truly, I think this is one of the best films ever made. And it's only 89 minutes. What this manages to accomplish in 89 minutes, most filmmakers could dream of accomplishing in 3 hours. And that's not to knock long films, because I'm a huge fan of long films, and a lot of my favorite movies are really long, but it's just phenomenal. Okay, so let's do Italy, and then let me mention something else. So this is a Radiance release that's actually not relatively recent, but someone heavily recommended this to me when I was talking about, actually, I think I was talking about Bicycle Thieves in another video. Someone in the comments, or maybe it was on our Discord for Patreon, someone said you really need to see this movie called The Bandits of Orgosolo. You'll really like it if you like Bicycle Thieves and other films like that. So this movie was released in 1961. This is also, oh, this is Vittorio De Seta. That's Vittorio De Sica, not to be confused. A Sardinian peasant is suspected of murder following an encounter with bandits. In order to survive, he has no option but to turn to banditry himself. Admired by Scorsese and Pasolini, Vittorio De Seta received acclaim for his first feature, which continues in the traditions of Visconti and De Sica, with his own style and rhythms. De Seta musters just as much power as the earlier masters. I mean that, like having just watched Bicycle Thieves and being blown away by it. Very excited about this release from Radiance Films. This is region A, B, and C, so you can watch this anywhere the hell you want. It's a 4K restoration. There's a new interview with the cinematographer on here. Well, that's really interesting. So yeah, I'm very excited about this film, having like literally last night just watched Bicycle Thieves and being re-blown away by it. I can't wait to check this out. So I wanted to mention Roma, Alfonso Cuarón. There is a Criterion release of this, but it's a Netflix movie. I don't have a physical release of it, but I rewatched it. I went to Mexico City a couple weeks ago, and I stayed in Roma, the neighborhood in Mexico City, and so I wanted to rewatch Roma. So I watched it on the plane, and I mean, well, like I really think Roma is like, it belongs in the same pantheon as films like Bicycle Thieves, as films like Eight and a Half, Seventh Seal, like Casablanca, whatever you think of as like the god tier echelon of the greatest films ever made. I really think that Roma it belongs in there. And I think it's one of the, I mean, how many films like that do you get every decade? Maybe like, well, I mean, in decades like the 50s and 60s, where there was like all the crazy Japanese, Italian, French cinema going on, you got more because there was this greater proliferation of innovation, I think, at that time. But like in the past decade, how many movies have we gotten that are like really like right away the first time you see them, you're like, that's like an 11 out of 10, easily deserves to belong in that pantheon of the greatest films ever made. The only other one that comes to mind to me immediately from the last decade is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm a huge Tarantino fan, but I really think that movie over time will become one of those films. But Roma is just, and what's so interesting about Roma is that it's so much in dialogue with Italian neorealism. It's like Cuarón is trying to like find, because if you look at Y tu mamá también, there's a very clear dialogue between that film and French New Wave films, and in particular Godard, right? But also Truffaut with, like Jules and Jim and stuff like that. And so you can see that Alfonso Cuarón is like in dialogue with these great film movements and these very innovative ways of making cinema from the past, but he's trying to make them different and to make them new and to make them meaningfully specific to his content. And so Y tu mamá también does not feel like you're watching like someone trying to do a Godard movie. It feels like it's its own thing, and yet you can see how it is in dialogue with that French New Wave cinema. Roma is so clearly, I mean, there's one scene that's, I think, like a direct homage to Fellini, to Eight and a Half, the opening scene of Eight and a Half. But there's so much in Roma that, like, I just watched Bicycle Thieves a week after watching Roma. You can see very clear parallels and very clear instances of him having been, like the scene in Roma where she's outside of the movie theater and she's sitting on the curb, and there's like this kind of bootleg market on the steps in the movie theater, and all of these people are like selling things and like talking and whatever. Reminds me a lot of when they go to the bike market in Bicycle Thieves. And like, it just feels a lot like Cuarón was watching a lot of neorealism and really thinking like, how do I make my version of this specific to my film, specific to Mexico City, specific to these characters? And I think that's so fascinating. And he makes it completely unique in his own. And I really, that's another film that I really would say that is a masterpiece. So then there's this movie. I never heard of this movie before. Someone sent it to me and said that they thought that I would like it. It's called Sour Party. It's an LA movie. I live in LA. I love LA movies. Gwen and James are two broke, self-absorbed, emotionally stunted 30-somethings eking their way through a meager LA existence. Hey, that sounds like my life 10 years ago. They've tried everything to get rich quick, from cliche artistic endeavors and failed business startups to sex work, playing the victims all the way. When Gwen realizes she forgot her older sister's baby shower the night before, she's determined to save face in front of her family and get her sister a proper gift from the registry. After putting their heads together, Gwen and James assemble a list of people they believe owe them money and set out on a twisted road trip across Los Angeles in an attempt to collect debts. What begins as a journey to confront the ghosts of their past quickly shifts gears as Gwen and James realize maybe they're not the victims after all. Maybe they've just been throwing themselves a sour party. Reggie Watts is in this movie. Corey Feldman is in this movie. Christopher Rodriguez Marquette. And the two leads are Samantha Westervelt and Amanda Drexton. So I've never heard of this film, like I said, but it sounds really interesting to me. So I might give it a shot one of these days. I love LA movies, which you'll know if you watch this channel. I love the city of Los Angeles, and I like watching it on film. I've been living here for 13 years at this point. So here's my stack of movies. These are recommendations slash pickups, whatever you want to call this video. I'm not exactly sure what you would call it, but I don't know if that's a good enough title for it. I think those are the movies. My name is Will. You're watching Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.